In 2018, the Deltona, Florida man was newly engaged and planning for his wedding until he was tragically gunned down at his home. Patrick De Laera and his fiancée Jessica Devnani were looking forward to their future wedding. The couple met on a dating app called Plenty Fish in June 2017. Their relationship quickly blossomed in a matter of months. The couple traveled and explored together. By December 2017, Patrick De Laera had popped the question, and Jessica Devnani happily accepted. He gave her this temporary engagement ring. "I was so excited. I was so happy my dreams were coming true," Devnani told. Patrick had plans to give her a custom-made engagement ring at a later date. On the morning of February 27, 2018, Max De Laera received a call about a package being delivered to the Deltona FLA, home that he shared with his son. Patrick had been expecting to receive Jessica Devnani's permanent engagement ring at any day. But Max never heard from Patrick, nor did Jessica when she tried contacting him. Jessica Devnani, who was worried, rushed to Patrick's home and found him lying dead in a pool of blood. He had been shot 4 times. "My whole future was taken away from me," she told. "My whole world was taken away." At the crime scene, investigators combed through Patrick De Laera's house. They discovered the killer had taken Patrick's computer and his hard drive from the home's security system. Investigators were able to find unique shell casings from .300 blackout ammunition, bullets used in semi-automatic weapons like an AR-15. "You know, right off the bat you're going, okay, this is probably going to be a whodunit," led Detective Chad Weaver of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. Before dating Patrick De Laera, Jessica Devnani was in a tumultuous 8-year relationship with Gregory Bender, a successful hedge fund manager. Devnani said Bender could be possessive. "I never feared what he could do to me, but I feared what he could do to other men," she told 48 Hours. The couple got engaged. While Gregory Bender was recovering from a medical procedure at the hospital, Jessica Devnani says she met another woman by his bedside. "And I told her I'm like his fiancée, and I showed her the ring. And then she showed me her ring. She's like, I'm his wife." Devnani eventually terminated her relationship with Bender. There was one person who could not stand seeing Jessica Devnani and Patrick De Laera in love. That man was Gregory Bender. Devnani says Bender would often leave threatening messages for her and Patrick. Jessica had shared one of those voicemails with 48 Hours. "I'm giving instructions, and I'm going to have my plan put into action," Bender said. While Jessica Devnani was dating Patrick De Laera, she says Gregory Bender invited her out on several occasions. She agreed to go because she said Bender was upset and she was trying to calm him down. "And he said that if I went to him, he would not hard anyone," Devnani said. What she didn't know at the time was Bender had hired a private investigator to secretly record them going out to eat together at various restaurants. He then had the private investigator send the recordings to Patrick. Eventually, both Jessica Devnani and Patrick De Laera had enough of Gregory Bender's antics. Devnani was able to file a restraining order against Bender with the mountain of evidence she had. The judge ruled in her favor, and Bender could not contact her and had to relinquish all of his firearms to authorities. Patrick De Laera and Jessica Devnani's dreams were shattered that morning in February 2018 when Jessica found Patrick dead. Earlier that morning, she received 2 calls from Gregory Bender, whom she had not heard from in months. She told detectives she believed Greg had murdered Patrick. It would not be the last time Detective Chad Weaver would hear Gregory Bender's name. He said Bender's ex-wife, Daymara Sanchez, had contacted him with information about Patrick De Laera's possible killer. She had discovered what she believed: wait for confirm that he is alone, then turn off cell phones. This note was written on a balled-up piece of paper, sitting on the top of the trash pile in the home of a suspected killer. Detectives were in disbelief. This unburied treasure was a key piece of evidence that they needed to convict their prime suspect of murder. In February 2018, 25-year-old Patrick De Laera was shot 4 times in an ambush-style assault by an assassin. Detective Chad Weaver of the Volusia County, Florida Sheriff's Office, who investigated the case, described the killer as lying in wait. Detective Weaver believes De Laera was gunned down when he came to his front door, expecting to receive a package containing an engagement ring for his fiancée, Jessica Devnani. You could see the front door was open. There was glass all over the place. At first, the detective thought, this is probably going to be a whodunit. To be a murder plan in a spiral notebook that she had seen Gregory writing in the past. Dating Weaver. With the tip from Gregory Bender's ex-wife, investigators had enough information to execute a search warrant at his home. They were able to find a similar murder plan that Daymara Sanchez described, and the same bullet casings found at the crime scene. It was enough to arrest Bender for murder, but there was still no murder weapon nor forensic evidence pointing to Bender as the killer. 3 years after Patrick De Laera's death, Gregory Bender went to trial on May 25, 2021. The week-long trial involved both women in Bender's life, Jessica Devnani and Daymara Sanchez. Bender's defense attorney told jurors that Bender should not be punished for jotting down a fantasy. This case is about the difference between a fantasy and reality, defense attorney Richard Parker said in court. People should not be judged on their worst thoughts just because they put them to paper, but that's what they're doing in this case. After 4 days of testimony, jurors found Gregory Bender guilty of murder. Bender was sentenced to life in prison without parole. "We finally did it," Jessica Devnani said. "We got the guilty verdict." Bender's attorneys say they are appealing his conviction. They contend the search of his house that produced the murder plan was illegal. Despite getting justice, Jessica Devnani and Patrick De Laera's family are angry about the restraining order because they believe it failed to save Patrick's life. Gregory Bender had been ordered to turn over his gun collection to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. He never did, and without probable cause for a search warrant, law enforcement lacked the authority to seize those weapons. It failed us. It failed Patrick. With Gregory Bender now behind bars, Jessica Devnani says she will continue to live on for Patrick De Laera. "We will always love him for the rest of our lives and the afterlives," Jessica stated. Murder of Travis. Alexander Travis. Victor Alexander, July 28, 1977, June 4, 2008, was an American salesman who was murdered by his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Ann Arias, born July 9, 1980, in his house in Mesa, Arizona. Arias was convicted of first-degree murder on May 8, 2013, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on April 13, 2015. At the time of the murder, Alexander sustained 27 stab wounds, a slit throat, and a single gunshot wound to the forehead. Arias testified that she killed him in self-defense, but she was convicted by the jury of first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, the jury deadlocked on the death penalty option, and Arias was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Alexander's death and the subsequent investigation and trial received widespread media attention in the United States. Background Travis was born on July 28, 1977, in Riverside, California, to Gary David Alexander and Pamela Elizabeth Morgan Alexander. At the age of 8, Travis moved in with his paternal grandparents. After his father's death in July 1997, his 7 siblings were also taken in by their paternal grandmother. Alexander told a friend that prior to joining a church, he would frequently engage in fights. He performed stand-up comedy under the alter ego Eddie Snell. Alexander was a salesman and motivational speaker for prepaid legal services, PPL. Arias was born on July 9, 1980, in Salinas, California, to William and Sandra, née Allen Arias. She attended school until 11th grade, at which point she dropped out of Eureka Union High School. She was an aspiring photographer and worked odd jobs until she got a sales position with PPL. Arias and Alexander met in September 2006 at a work conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Arias converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which Alexander was a member, and was baptized by him on November 26, 2006 in a ceremony in Southern California. Alexander and Arias began dating in February 2007, and Arias moved to Mesa to live closer to Alexander. But in April 2008, she moved to Eureka, California, and lived there with her grandparents. Alexander and Arias dated intermittently for a year and a half, often in a long-distance relationship, taking turns traveling between their respective Arizona and California homes. Even when Alexander was in a different relationship, he and Arias would sext each other. Alexander's friends who knew Arias and observed them together reportedly had a negative opinion of her, stating that the relationship was unusually tumultuous and that Arias's behavior was worrying. Murder Alexander was murdered at his house in Mesa, Arizona on Wednesday, June 4, 2008. He sustained 27 stab wounds, a slit throat, and a gunshot wound to the head. Medical examiner Kevin Horn would later testify that Alexander's jugular vein, common carotid artery, and trachea had been slashed, and that he had defensive wounds on his hands. Horn further testified that Alexander may have been dead at the time the gunshot was inflicted, and that the back wounds were shallow. Alexander's death was ruled a homicide. He was buried at Riverside's Olivewood Memorial Park Cemetery. Discovery and investigation. Perpetrator Jodi Arias Alexander missed an important conference call on the evening of June 4th. The following day, Arias met Ryan Burns in the Salt Lake City suburb of West Jordan and attended business meetings for the conference. Burns later said that he noticed that Arias's formerly blonde hair was now dark brown and that she had cuts on her hands. On June 6th, she left Salt Lake City and drove west toward California. She called Alexander several times and left several voicemail messages for him. She also accessed his cell phone voicemail system. When Arias returned the car on June 7th, it had been driven about 2,800 miles, 4,500 kilometers. The rental clerk testified that the car was missing its floor mats and had red stains on its front and rear seats. However, it could not be verified that the car had floor mats when Arias had picked it up, and the red stains could not be analyzed as the car had been cleaned before police could examine it. On June 9th, having been unable to reach Alexander, a concerned group of friends went to his home. His roommates had not seen him for several days, but they believed that he was out of town and thus did not suspect that anything was amiss. After finding a key to Alexander's bedroom, the group entered and found large pools of blood in the hallway to the master bathroom and Alexander's body in the shower. In the 911 call, not heard by the jury, the dispatcher asked whether Alexander had been suicidal or if anyone was angry enough to hurt him. Alexander's friends mentioned Arias by name as a possible suspect, stating that Alexander had told them that she had been stalking him, accessing his Facebook account, and slashing his car's tires. While searching Alexander's home, police found his recently purchased digital camera damaged in the washing machine. Police were able to recover deleted images showing Arias and Alexander in sexually suggestive poses, taken at approximately 1:40 p.m. on June 4th. The final photograph of Alexander alive showing him in the shower was taken at 5:29 p.m. that day. Photos taken moments later show an individual believed to be Alexander profusely bleeding on the bathroom floor. A bloody palm print was discovered along the wall in the bathroom hallway. It contained DNA from both Arias and Alexander. On July 9, 2008, Arias was indicted by a grand jury in Maricopa County, Arizona, for the first-degree murder of Alexander. She was arrested at her home 6 days later and was extradited to Arizona on September 5th. Arias pleaded not guilty on September 11th. During this time, she provided several different accounts about her involvement in Alexander's death. She first told police that she had not been in Mesa on the day of the murder and had last seen Alexander in March 2008. Arias later told police that 2 intruders had broken into Alexander's home, murdering him and attacking her. 2 years after her arrest, Arias told police that she killed Alexander in self-defense, stating she had been a victim of domestic violence. Criminal action pre-trial. On April 6, 2009, a motion to reconsider the defendant's motion to disqualify the Maricopa County District Attorney's Office was denied. On May 18th, the court ordered Arias to submit to IQ and competency testing. In January 2011, a defense filing detailed Arias's attorney's efforts to obtain text messages and emails. The prosecution initially told defense attorneys that no text messages that had been sent or received by Alexander were available. But the prosecution was then ordered to turn over several hundred such messages. Mesa Police Detective Esteban Flores told defense attorneys that there was nothing out of the ordinary among Alexander's emails. About 8,000 were turned over to the defense in June 2009.